over 15 years, Saturdays and A Legal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live, wherever it is you're joining us live from, good morning and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm Dave Manouk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. Drew's taking today's show off. So we're going to drive the bus here, Ezzy, for a couple of hours of Jets, Moose, NHL Playoffs, and, of course, NHL Draft Talk. We'll have Jamie Thomas, Jets team reporter, joining us in about 25 minutes. We'll talk about all things Jets related with Jamie. And then, of course, 10:30, Craig Button, TSN's own director of scouting, who we love to have on the show to share his insight. And he'll come and talk. Maybe we'll talk playoffs with Craig, Ezzy, but we'll also, of course, talk about the upcoming NHL draft, which is getting closer, Ezzy, only a month away before the NHL draft gets underway. Before we get started talking about the Jets, the Moose, the playoffs, and anything else that comes across our minds, how are you doing, my friend, this morning?
I'm doing awesome. I mean, it's I'm looking out my window. The weather's not too great, but
yeah,
I mean, we've had 2 months of bad weather. So what's another one bad day of weather, right, Dave? Yeah. Although it's supposed to be nicer next week, supposed to warm up, I think, into the 30s. I saw. So yeah, no, things are good. Excited to talk hockey, and as always, when Drew isn't on the show, I always appreciate more mic time. So that's always a good thing. And even though it's a little bit of a more quiet part of the off season for the Jets, there's still tons to talk about. Like you mentioned, lots of Jets doing really well at the World Championship. Yep. I saw, Dave, you posted Ville Heinola continues to play really well. He had a couple goals in his last game. Leon Gawanke, former Winnipeg Jets / Manitoba Moose, he had a hat trick for Germany.
Yeah.
So there's lots of hockey to talk about.
I almost, Ezzy, that's our next segment after this one. So I was like, let's not show everyone everything we've got. But look, as you said, there's not, or maybe as I said, Ezzy, but there's not a ton of stuff Jets related right now. We're waiting, and like you said, we're watching what's going on in the World Championship.
It's like Drew said last week, Dave. Like this is the calm before the storm every year, right? Like obviously we're used to the Jets being in the playoffs. Not necessarily in the conference finals every year, but certainly in the first couple rounds. So it's definitely the calm before the storm, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Jets do, because I think you'd agree the big question now is, do the Jets actually make that 8th overall pick? And I think right now it's up in the air. I think it has to be in play, or I think I would argue that it should be in play if you're trying to address some of the holes on your team, right? But we're going to go under the assumption that the Jets are going to make the 8th overall pick. And as you mentioned, Dave, talked to Craig Button and go over some of the players that are going to be, we think are going to be available based on what the scouts are saying.
Well, and the more I read about this draft and some of these defensive players that are going to be available, you almost think there's no question the Jets have to make that pick. But you're right, Ezzy. We will approach that when we approach that, and we'll have some exciting draft stuff for everyone coming later for you. But maybe let's get into the idea of, Cole Perfetti. And that's the big question. Of course, he's an RFA. He has, I believe, arbitration rights this year, but I'm not sure that he's going to go to an arbitration hearing with the Winnipeg Jets. So from your perspective, we'll get into the numbers in a second. Murat Atesh of The Athletic wrote a really good article about projecting Cole Perfetti's next contract with the Winnipeg Jets. Have you changed your mind in terms of the term? Of course, he's 2 years away from being a UFA. So the question really for most folks would be that this contract is either going to be a 1-year contract, maybe a 3-year contract where you get at least 1 year of the UFA and you get 3 years to kind of, get him to prove himself, or 5 years where you say, okay, maybe you're getting him at a bit of a discount, which Winnipeggers love, because he had a down season to start this year.
Well, and you mentioned Murat's article, and just like all of his articles, very well written, very informative, uses Gabe Vilardi as an in-house comparable for Cole Perfetti. I think what's interesting, Dave, and Murat writes about this in the article, is, I don't think at any point we really thought this was going to be a 1-year deal, because if you're signing a 1-year deal, is the writing not on the wall that player is eventually going to be out the door, right? Like we saw that with Jacob Trouba, we saw that with Andrew Kopp, right? They signed 1 year deals a year before becoming unrestricted free agents, right? And that caused all the consternation about whether those players would re-sign. Obviously, they were traded. I've thought all along, or I guess I should say, as the season's progressed, I've kind of thought, that long-term contract might not be coming for Cole Perfetti, but now I look at it a little bit. I think last time we talked about this, Dave, I said 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
And Murat makes a good point that, if Cole Perfetti signed, the Jets could get him at a lower cap value than, if they sign him to a shorter term deal and he becomes a 60 to 70 point player, which is kind of what we all expect him to be, right? Like, I think everyone that's Cole Perfetti's upside. Like, could he hit 80 points? Yeah, he could. I think, but let's just say 60 to 80 points, Dave. I think let's agree that's kind of Cole Perfetti's ceiling at the NHL level, right? And he's coming off of a down year with the ankle injury and everything like that. And I think that's what the Jets are probably weighing right now. Is the risk of giving him an extra couple years worth it?
Right.
If it turns out to be that player, and then you get him for a more manageable cap hit, like I think the number was 6.5 million AAV that Murat put out there. Obviously, that's just a projection, but I'm starting to think that maybe he does get that 6-year deal. I don't know. I don't know if we see a 7-year deal. I'm not sure about that. But I think it's going to be somewhere in there, David. So in that respect, it hasn't changed that much. I still think it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 6 years.
Yep.
But I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens, because this contract I don't think is as easy to project as some others, right? Like some contracts that have come up recently, Dylan Samberg.
Yeah.
I think of Gabe Vilardi. I mean, Gabe Vilardi was coming off of a career year, and then he topped that with another career year, right? But Cole Perfetti is coming off of a down year. And it's mentioned in the article, right? Like Cole Perfetti had 5 points in his first 24 games.
Right.
But then after January 1st, that projects to be a 60-point player based on his points per game. January 1st on, that projects to be a 60-point season is what I should say. So, yeah, it's a little bit, I think, trickier for the Jets. And I think, there's some risk on Cole Perfetti's side, right? Like if Cole Perfetti signs, a 6-year deal at, let's use 6.5 million AAV. Like, is he leaving some money on the table? Right. I'm not sure, but I definitely don't think that we're looking at a 1-year deal. There's just nothing, Dave, to indicate that's the road we're going down.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of looking at it. And I'll read from Murat's article, and I recommend you read the entire thing. But as you said, we've talked about the term. I'm more of the opinion that the Jets are going to stick with him for a longer term as opposed to a shorter. I think they're going to go for a 5-year deal. I think they're going to look at his season and say, listen, like, much like everyone else, like Lowry and Samberg and Hellebuck, you had a down first half and you started to get better towards the second half, obviously coming off that high ankle sprain. But so Murat wrote, there are four projections at the conclusion sort of his article. He said there's a Vilardi comparable using one and only one of his Jets teammates to project 6 years at 5.44 AAV. The 2025 RFA list choosing Matt Coronado based on comparable point per game rates to project 7 years at a 7.01 million AAV. Then he uses Evolving Hockey's projection, which projects a 3 or 4 year contract between 5.4 and 5.8 million. And lastly, AFP Analytics, which projects a 5-year contract at $6.4 million. But what you'll notice in most of those is, using more of a long-term expectation rather than short-term. I mean, with Perfetti, the only reason why you may do a 1-year deal, I guess, is that you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, it was not a good year. Which player are you? Are you the first half player or are you the second half player? And, like Adam Lowry said, I think guys do what they need to do, especially with Cole Perfetti going into a contract year. I think guys just do what they need to do to get back in that lineup. And also because they want to help their teammates, not because it's for some selfish reason. I think that they do. And clearly he wasn't prepared to be back, and we saw that he wasn't. There was just too much rust. He was hesitant to go into corners and turn. So from your perspective, when you hear the numbers that I just reeled off, which does anything stand out to you, or are you kind of sticking with what your assessment was?
Well, Dave, you mentioned that you think it's going to be 5 years, and I said 4 to 6 years. So obviously, we're both on the same page here, because I can't say equivocally that, like I said, it's harder to predict because of the fact that Perfetti had such a slow start, went through the injury. We've already gone over that, but I think those numbers make sense, and I'm a big fan of Cole Perfetti's game. Like, I realize that some Jets fans have been critical of his game. A lot of expectations. When you're a 10th overall pick, the expectations are higher than if you're a 27th overall pick, right?
Yep.
We know that. And, Perfetti was on his way to improving on his 50-point season from 2 years ago, and it didn't happen. And so I think that it's impossible to talk about Perfetti and not mention the slow start that he had after the injury, and you have to factor that in, right? Whether you want to or not, whether you say that it's an excuse, it's just the reality. Yeah. And I think that the Perfetti that we saw January 1st on is the real Perfetti. Like I said earlier, I'm of the belief that he can be a 60 to 80 point player. Like, I realize that's a pretty big range, but I don't want to limit him to just being a 60 point. Like, what did he have when he played for Saginaw in the OHL? He had well over 100 points. Like, this is a really good offensive player, and you have to also factor in like his line mates this past year, right? Like, there was no real consistent second line center this year for Cole Perfetti, and I think that'll change big time. And you have to think, Dave, that there's a good chance that Gabe Vilardi is going to be part of that second line, right? Because we saw that obviously have a lot of success last year when Iafallo moved up to the Scheifele line. So I think those numbers make a lot of sense. And I personally, look, if the Jets end up signing Perfetti to a 5-year deal, what was it, 6.4 million, 6.5 million AAV, with the salary cap going up, I mean, he's let's be honest, he's your 4th best offensive player. I think that salary makes a lot of sense when you consider the cap's going up, every year now. It's not a flat cap anymore. Yeah. And what Perfetti can do, he can give you really good minutes, even strength, and he obviously is going to be factoring into that power play, even though that power play had limited success for the Jets this year. So yeah, I think 5 years, 4 years, 6 years, Dave, it all makes sense to me for Cole Perfetti. And the 1-year contract to me would be interesting, right? Because, like I said, the Jets in the past, the guys that have signed the 1-year contracts, the Jacob Trubas, the Andrew Kopps, that's resulted in them eventually getting traded. So obviously the Jets don't want that. We know that. The Jets do not want a 1-year contract, because if Cole Perfetti puts up 60 points, then they're just going to have to pay him, $7 million a year instead of $6.5 million a year or whatever, right, Dave? $7.5 million a year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, this one is definitely one of the more tricky ones, Dave, I think that we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think that it seems like oftentimes, and you could get the Mark Scheifele type contract, right, Ezzy, where they Jets signed Mark Scheifele, and remember everyone was like, wow, you're throwing $6 million at a guy. I think, what was it, 6x6, his first contract, or somewhere in that range, and everyone was.
I thought it was 8. Didn't he sign 8 years?
Oh, sorry. Was it 8 times? Was it 8 times 6?
I don't know. Now it's a long time ago. That was what, 10 years ago?
I thought his first one was 6 times 6, but I could be wrong.
You could be right. Here, I'll look it up.
Well, if only there was a website where we could check this kind of thing. But anyways, I think that the Jets have gotten bargain contracts with Mark Scheifele. That's for sure. They've definitely.
Oh, hold on. Big Daddy was right.
It was 8x6
on July 8th, 2016. So almost 10 years ago. I was right about that. The Jets signed Scheifele to an 8-year, $49 million contract with a 6.125 AAV. Okay. You're right, Dave. I mean, that was an absolute bargain. I mean, Scheifele, he definitely overperformed with that contract. He should have, while he was making that money, he should have been making $8 or $9 million a year. I think you'd agree.
For sure. But again, the Jets took a bit of a risk, right? Because they handed him that, he had a good season. They handed him that big long-term contract, right? It was 8 years, not 6 years. My mistake, but right on the amount, at least, well, close enough, 6 million, 6.1. But I will say that, as he says, that was 10 years ago. It's hard to remember all these contracts and the first contracts and second contracts, but not to make excuses. Ultimately, the Jets, did get a bargain with Mark Scheifele. I'd argue that they've gotten a bargain, especially given the cap increase that we're seeing. And I think that's a good factor as well, is that, the percentage of Cole Perfetti's impact is not as significant. And really, he is the most of the guys who need to get signed. He's probably the one who's going to take the biggest amount of money, obviously. So, I just think it's interesting. I think the way it's playing out is going to be curious. Again, like I said, I would think that the Jets are, like you, more inclined to believe he's more of the January 1st player. But because of his size, and because speed is such an important thing, and it's not one of his biggest assets, like he obviously was able to overcome it, but it was a factor. So you do wonder a good summer of training if he's able to get back to kind of the Cole Perfetti you expect. And there's no question that he, like Nikolai Ehlers before him, is going to need some sort of consistent line mates. I mean, that would obviously go a long way of the Jets being able to give someone on that second line who's not Adam Lowry that sort of solidify the position, I guess, at least.
Right. And I think that's a key point. And we mentioned it earlier, but that has to be factored in here as something, as a factor that contributed to Perfetti having such a slow start to the season and his point totals being down. That obviously being the mess that was the second line. Like, let's be honest here. Like, Adam Lowry filled in as second line center at the end of the year, but I think Lowry himself would tell you, he doesn't have the high end offensive upside to be your permanent second line center, right? Like, that's why he's been the third line center for how many years, right? And he's been an excellent third line center. So that's why it comes back to, who are the Jets going to bring in to play with Perfetti? And I agree with you, Dave. Like, if you're going to go with Perfetti and Vilardi on the wings, you need some more speed up the middle, right? Because Vilardi, I'm not going to say Vilardi is a slow player, but Vilardi's also not, somebody who's necessarily known for being a fast player either. So when you talk about that second line, that's why, it feels like week after week we keep bringing it up, but we are going to keep bringing it up because we expect Chevy to address it either via trade or free agency. Right now, it's looking like, it's more likely to come via trade. Yeah. But that's the key thing that I think has to be mentioned, is that, like, if Perfetti had, insert, whoever as your second line center, somebody that was, a good consistent second line center, like Brock Nelson. Like,
that's funny. That was the name that came to mind.
Yeah, like, or whoever. I mean, I keep going to Brock Nelson because the Jets were after Brock Nelson, right?
Yeah.
But give him a good second line center to play with. And like I said, I think Perfetti's a 60-point player. And I, by the way, I don't think that, I'm delusional when I say that. Again, the Jets drafted him 10th overall for this exact reason, right? Like, they wanted him to be an impact player in their top 6. And I think, another question that comes up is, like we said, with the second line, is if Vilardi's going to stay there, is Iafallo your guy on the third line? Is there another player that the Jets are thinking of using on the top line, right? Like, there's a lot of moving parts there because of the hole that you have up the middle. But I definitely think Vilardi and Perfetti worked really well together, right? Because you've got Perfetti, who's got the vision. He likes to set up plays. Vilardi's obviously a shooter, but he can also set up plays. So I think those guys really fed off of each other on the wings. But yeah, I think this contract, it 5 years, like you said earlier, Dave, makes a lot of sense. And I don't think the risk is as high as some people might think. Like, I think, like, Perfetti, I don't think, like, you're not going to get less than 45 to 50 points, I think, a year out of Cole Perfetti. I just don't see that, right? Like, again, January 1st on, he was projected to be a 50-point player. And I realize, Dave, that we don't always want to fixate on point totals.
Yeah.
Because players are more than just point totals.
Yeah.
But, again, maybe, some people do think I'm delusional, but I think Cole Perfetti is going to turn it around next year. And I think he can be a big part of the Jets. I realize, there's some fans out there that look at Perfetti as a guy that you could possibly trade. But, if you're trading Perfetti, then now for a second line center, like let's say you're trading Perfetti and a first round pick, 8th overall for a second line center. Well, now you have a hole on the wing on your second line, right, Dave? So, yeah, I think Perfetti, you sign him to a 4, 5, 6 year contract. I think it's going to play out really well.
I think it's a fair way of looking at it. I think, again, this is all the subject of conversation. This is what we do during the summer months when there's no Jets hockey to talk about, that the speculation nation of the trades and contracts, and that's what we have to look at. And we appreciate the folks chiming in here in the chat, of course.
Well, like Kelsey, like for those listening on the podcast, Kelsey's comment is this a replay from 2025? I feel like I heard this last offseason. Yes, and you also heard it in 2024 and 2023, 2022. Basically, Dave, going back to Kevin Hayes. No, going back to Sean Monahan is basically where we've been talking about it. We always joke, but no, I mean, this is definitely a conversation we've had before.
No, there's no. I mean, look, it is the biggest conundrum for the Winnipeg Jets, despite what Mr. Mandel says, right, Ezzy, that the Jets have to fix their second line. I mean, you look at the playoffs right now. Look at some of these teams with the depth of their lineup, and then you look at the Winnipeg Jets, and you can see that lineup is not nearly as deep as the teams that they want to be competing against. So, I mean, again, it's not to say that Jets can't beat these teams one-on-one, one-off, but you have to go up in a 7-game series against a team like Vegas or Colorado, Carolina, even Montreal. That to me is a different question, right? As in terms of having that depth. So that's a big thing the Jets are going to have to try and solve. And obviously a big part of that will be whether Cole Perfetti can rebound, right? Because like you said, as it's up in the air. I tend to agree with you. I tend to think that he's more connected to the player we saw the latter half of the season versus the first half. And so I think that you're going to get a good bounce back. And that the Jets have traditionally gotten pretty good value out of their contracts when they get these types of guys signed to a little more term.
I can't even really think of that many contracts that you would say have been bad contracts, right, Dave? Like I think there's some contracts that you would say maybe didn't age well, like the Blake Wheeler contract. Maybe you would say like that contract didn't age particularly
His first 2 years, though, he had over 90 points.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't say as a whole that contract was bad, but for the most part, Chevy hasn't signed that many bad deals. And if he has signed bad contracts, they've been shorter term contracts, right?
He signs bad free agent contracts, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, and
Dmitry Kulikov comes to mind. Gustav Nyquist comes to mind.
Oh, well, that Dmitry Kulikov contract, David, just seems to never go away, right?
Well, again, because the three of us were sitting there and we're talking, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, 3 years, 3.17 or whatever it was, or was it more? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, no, that's per. I'm like, oh, that's a big overpay.
Yeah. Hey, Kulikov's got a Stanley Cup, Dave. Not doing too bad. Unfortunately, it wasn't with the Winnipeg Jets, right?
He's got two. Doesn't he have 2 Stanley Cups?
I believe he does. I think
he's got 2.
Yeah. He was on both teams. He followed his boy Pomo to Florida and cashed in. But yeah, I think, Chevy, for the most part, his long-term contracts have all worked out well, right? Like we talked about Scheifele, bargain, Hellebuck, bargain, Morrissey, bargain, right? Like all of these guys are underpaid in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see with Kyle Connor. Neil Pionk, obviously not a great start to that.
But Kyle Connor, Dave, like what's he making? 12 million?
Yep.
12 million a year. He's going to consistently give you 40 plus goals and 90 plus points.
No, Connor's
right?
not.
So Connor,
I'm just saying we don't know yet. That's the only thing.
No, we don't. We definitely. Yeah. But I think most Jets fans will agree that Kyle Connor, coming off of his career year, deserved to get that big payday, right? And obviously, Perfetti's not coming off of that career year, but he deserves definitely to be paid. As a top 6 forward, which he is, right? Like, yeah. And it goes back to what I said. Like, I realize that Cole Perfetti, some people look at him as being a trade chip. I'm not saying that Chevy isn't considering trading him. I just think that what they've invested in him, they've developed in him. I don't see that. Like, I personally don't see the Jets trading Perfetti. I could be wrong.
He's worth 50 cents on the dollar right now.
Well, that's another factor, right? Yeah. Like you're trading him you're trading him low, right? Like if you want to use a stocks analogy, right? Like you're definitely buying low on Cole Perfetti right now. But and again, I might be a little bit biased because I really like Cole Perfetti's game, and I think he's going to turn it around, but I don't think I'm alone, right? Like, I think, many people in the Jets organization believe that this year was a one-off, like you said earlier, Dave, and he's going to turn it around. So, but I think it goes back to what we said before. The biggest thing is who is going to be up the middle on that second line, right? Who's going to add some talent and some speed on that second line to propel Perfetti to new heights? Because Perfetti is not, I think you'd agree, Dave, Perfetti's not a play driver.
No.
Like Perfetti needs someone up the middle. He needs a good veteran second line center to help him up the middle. So we'll see what happens with Perfetti in the contract, but it's definitely, I think it might surprise a few people once they announce that contract. I think you'd agree, Dave.
We're all waiting with bated breath. On the other side of this break, we're going to hear from Jamie Thomas, Jets team reporter. But for now, we're going to hear from our commercial sponsors. While you're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show commercials, smash the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel, and we'll hear from you, and we'll hear from Jamie on the other side of the break.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Ray D. JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're cruising along this Saturday morning, but now, Ezzy, we're set to be joined by the host of the Ground Control podcast, the co-host of the Check-In pregame show, and of course, Jets team reporter Jamie Thomas. We had one JT on last week. We'll have another JT on this week, and he's
John
a huge fan
Tavares.
Yeah, something like that. Yes, Jimmy Toast, aka John Tavares. But this time we'll have Jamie Thomas, who apparently isn't just all of those things I'd said, but also a huge fan of IC.
Yeah, well, as that goes out saying, whenever I think this is my 4th appearance. So now that I'm a friend of the show, I am a huge fan of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, which comes to you every Saturday morning, no matter what time of the season.
That's a good point. Although, Jamie, I cannot believe, and again, my memory's been a little spotty this morning, but I can't believe you've only been on 4 times. I think it's got to be.
I'm sure it's more than that. I have a horrible memory. So
I was going to say, I feel like we've had you on 4 times this year alone, let alone.
Yeah.
4
Yeah.
times.
You know what? That's it. 4th time this year I've been on the show. Yes.
Yeah,
so now that I'm a friend of the show.
You definitely are a friend of the show, and welcome aboard. We're chatting Jets. Of course, we've spent our first segment talking about the Cole Perfetti contract and what it might look like in sort of term. So where have you kind of come to, have you been thinking about that one at all? Because obviously he's probably the most important of the Jets off-season signings when it comes to their RFAs. Have you given it, I know we've got a lot of focus on the draft, and we'll get into that, of course, with you, but have you given any thought in terms of Cole Perfetti's next contract with the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I mean, it is clearly one of the most, like you just said it the best way, Dave. It's probably the most important within the team signing. Unfortunately for Cole, in a contract year, you start the preseason with a high ankle sprain, and then you have to work your way through that. And it took him some time to start flashing the play or the consistency that we saw the season before, and clearly with the greatest goal ever in the Stanley Cup playoffs leading up into that. So I haven't thought about it much, but I'm thinking in the 6 range for sure, 6 million AAV, but it has to get done. And he's such a big part of your big 6 or your top 6 forward group, and a big part of your future. So however this looks, is clearly one of the priorities for Kevin Cheveldayoff and company, because I think last year to me was an anomaly based off the fact of the injury that he was dealing with. That was not the Cole Perfetti that we saw the year before, and it was because of the high ankle sprain. And clearly, and I've never had one, but from what I've heard, and it's one of the trickiest injuries to overcome, and especially for a guy that is not known for his speed. You can't lose a step here and there and be the Cole Perfetti that the Winnipeg Jets need him to be.
So, Jamie, sorry, as I'll just want to ask one follow up. Are you inclined to think that they will look at it as a 1-year sort of prove yourself before his ultimately getting to UFA in the second year? Or
no. I think you signed him to clearly to an extension. Yeah, no, it's going to be. I think clearly the Winnipeg Jets know what they have in Cole Perfetti and understand what last year was. Right, it's not like they're going, let's offer him less and just give him 1 year. So this is going to be a long-term extension. It's deserved. It is necessary, and Cole Perfetti is going to be a long-term part of the solution for the Winnipeg Jets as they try to get back to the Stanley Cup playoffs starting next year.
Jamie, as Dave mentioned, we want to talk to you about the 2026 draft. You had a really good chat with Mike Moriali, who's a draft expert. We've had him on the show before, so we obviously want to talk to you about that article and that conversation you had with him, and obviously some of the options at 8th overall, which, Jamie, I think you'd agree. I've said to Dave, there's 10 to 12 guys that could possibly go to 8th overall, right? Like, it's that time of year where everybody's trying to narrow it down to a few players. But I wanted to start off with you, at least my first question, with the World Championships, right? Because I was talking to my dad about this recently. Actually, it's on my bucket list, Jamie. I'm not sure if you've ever gone to the World Hockey Championship, but that's on my bucket list. Every year it just seems to produce, so many great memories and moments. And obviously, Mark Scheifele had one of those games recently, picking up a hat trick and 4 points. Obviously, Gabe Vilardi, Dylan DeMello there as well. But it goes beyond that, right? Nino Niederreiter is producing. Ville Heinola had a couple goals yesterday, right? So, right. This, to me, I look at this and I realize, like, the question could be, what does this mean? Could this translate? But the way I look at it is, when you have players on a team that didn't make the playoffs, like the Jets, it's a good thing that they're getting these bonus games and this bonus experience. It can only help. There's no downside to it. It's just watching these guys play at a high level, a very high level, and it's great to see Scheifele scoring goals and excelling for Team Canada in a year in which obviously there was the big disappointment of not making the Olympic team.
I think that's what the World Championships is for, guys. Like, it's just, you in a year where the Jets had where nothing went right, outside of some individual, accolades and performances. I think that World Championships just helps you get rid of that bitter taste in your mouth. And for someone like Mark Scheifele, who was overlooked for Four Nations face-off and the Olympic roster, I think it can only help his cause for the World Cup of Hockey in 2028 too. So I think it was important for him to say yes, to keep himself on the radar for that tournament, even though it's so far away. But for him to produce the way he did, he said in the broadcast afterwards to Britt Dort that he's just, he felt snake bitten the previous 3 games before the hat trick, but just an incredible performance for him. And it's great that he's got Gabe Vilardi. I love the fact that he saw some time with, Macklin Celebrini and Sidney Crosby, and then being on the first power play. Are you kidding me? Like, any opportunity that you have to be around someone like Sidney Crosby, you jump at it. And I love the fact that Crosby has said yes the last couple of years as his career winds down. I still think there's lots more left in the tank, and for Dylan DeMello to get the opportunity at age 33 is huge too. Yep. The tournament itself is a great opportunity for them to represent their country, and I don't think anybody's going to turn it down in that aspect. So I think it's important for any of the Jets that were asked by their nations to play to say yes, and they have, and I'm happy for Ville Heinola. That considering the emotional year or time he's had recently, for him to go play for Finland is big. And Nino Niederreiter, the one consistent that I'm noticing is that Switzerland is starting to consistently dominate at the World Hockey Championships, and it's just because guys keep saying yes. Like, it's that core group of Swiss stars. Like Roman Josi, obviously Kevin Fiala is hurt this year, but I saw him reading off the starting lineup. They're a tight group.
Nico Hischier.
Yeah, like, it's just it's incredible the amount of players that keep saying yes, and that to me is it. From a European perspective, I don't find many opportunities where guys are saying no that play in the National Hockey League when their country asks at the World Championships. It's just the North American teams that seem to have that issue. But it's a consistent factor that Switzerland knows what to do and how to play, and they have a perfect style for the World Championships that allows them to have success. So it was good to see Nino Niederreiter cash in a couple of goals the other day as well.
And here, Dan and Kevin on the broadcast. I mean, it feels like you're listening to a Jets broadcast.
I was asking. I forgot that I texted Dan Robertson. I'm like, okay, so tell me what names are are giving you a hard time, and he sent me a couple, and I can't even pronounce them. So he said there was something blank, doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, and I'm pretty sure. I can't imagine the Hungarian names are the easiest to say either. So, and clearly Latvia has a couple of tongue twisters as well. So, but both guys, just great to hear them. And they don't get to call playoff games, so why not go to the World Championships and be in beautiful Europe in the month of May and June for sure.
Well, Jamie, I've got a Jets-related question, but one, you mentioned Sidney Crosby. Were you a little surprised that, and does that show the humility of Sidney Crosby that when he arrives, they don't take the C off Celebrini and they keep it with him? Because I would imagine Crosby said, "There's no chance you're taking it off the kid."
Right, and I think the unfortunate part with Sidney Crosby is we just can't describe how his greatness enough, like his class. Enough, and that's why I think it was important. Not that Mark Scheifele and Gabe Vilardi haven't been around Sidney Crosby before, but just to be around him as a teammate as well, and the amount of stuff that you can absorb from him, just being in his presence is incredible. And being at Four Nations Face-Off, you just talking to the players, you realize the respect that he commands from everybody. I don't want him to retire. I really wish that anybody's like, is this his last year? I really wish that would go away because it just doesn't feel like it's coming anytime soon. I would not be surprised if he's at the World Cup, and I wouldn't even be surprised if he's not in France for the next Olympics as well, because of how well he's playing and how well he takes care of his body. And he's just incredible. And I'm so happy that he's Canadian.
Agree with you on that one for sure, Jamie. And so moving back to the Jets, and one player that doesn't seem to get a lot of, we haven't talked about him a lot, I should say, and he only had a small sample size with the Winnipeg Jets, is Isak Rosen. And my question is, obviously he's coming off his entry-level contract that he signed with the Sabres, and he's going to need he's an RFA this year. You're not expecting a big salary out of him. He's probably going to make $1 million next year. But just from your perspective, how important is he potentially for this Jet team? He seems to me, again, I know he only had the 3 goals with the Jets in 20-something games.
Right.
Again, he wasn't necessarily on a line that was conducive to scoring goals with Taves and Nyquist. But from your perspective, a guy who can score goals at the American Hockey League level, and he can do it fairly efficiently, given the fact that I think he had like 27 goals in 38 games or something like that for Rochester last year. So, and that's not something that, guys, I mean, Brad Lambert scored 21 in 50 something in his first year, but he didn't replicate it the last 2 years. So that's something that a lot of the Jets prospects haven't been able to do. So from your perspective, what did you see from him in the 20 games that we were seeing him in a Jets jersey, and potentially how big of an impact do you think he could play on a team that needs scoring?
Yeah, I think a huge impact. And you just said it, Dave. Like the fact that he scored goals at the American Hockey League level consistently, I believe it was around 85. And then like a lot of people might say, well, what about this kid? How come Buffalo didn't call him up? It's because Buffalo is so loaded with prospects up front that there just wasn't the space for him to stick around long enough in the National Hockey League whenever there was a call up. So the goal scoring ability is there. He is incredibly paramount to what the Jets have. He was the key to me, the center. It's nice they got draft picks back and stuff like that, but he is the centerpiece of that deal for Logan Stanley that the Jets pulled off before the trade deadline. So he's clearly a middle six guy right now, but down the road, that type of goal scoring ability is going to have to translate on the power play. I think you find it. Morgan Barron described it best. He just said you see the ability that he has on the ice, and I think the best people to ask about how good Isaac Rosén is his teammates. I mean, they're playing with them, they're on the ice with them. The coaches will say some nice things, but it's the guys that take passes from him, find him on the ice, wondering where he is and knowing where he is. I think Morgan Barron had a tremendous amount of respect for him when I asked about Isaac Rosén when the minimal amount of time that they played together before Barron got hurt. So I think he's important to the future of this hockey club, again, much like obviously Cole Perfetti, but the ability to score goals is incredibly hard to find nowadays in the National Hockey League. And I think the Jets have a guy that is very gifted in that department in Isaac Rosén. So a big part of what they're going to have to do here down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really impressed. The skill is abundant, and everyone can see that he's produced at the AHL level. And I think that trade between the Sabres and the Jets, Jamie, just gets better and better. I mean, we obviously, we weren't hoping that Schenn and Stanley would both be healthy scratches, but they were in Game 7 for the Sabres. So it's looking like that return for the Jets is looking pretty good right now. And we mentioned the conversation you had with Mike Morreale of NHL.com. We mentioned, for those who don't know, Mike Morreale, he's a great guy, first and foremost, very nice person.
That's the first time I talked to him. He's like tremendous, and that guy can go forever.
Great. Yeah.
The one thing about draft guys, I'm sure you guys know this, they can fill an entire show with one answer. That's the incredible part about them. Like you ask something and then you can just sit back and relax, drink your coffee while they tell you about certain prospects, because I can't even imagine the amount of stuff that goes through their head on a daily basis. And to say it as much as, and I know they do a lot of shows, I know they do a lot of writing, but I'm always so impressed with the amount of knowledge that they have about each prospect.
Well, this time of year, we used to always joke about this. Like we would say for the amateur scouts and the draft analysts, Jamie, like this time of year, it's their Super Bowl, right? Like this is their happy time of the year when they're like, we're, I guess, just under a month away from the NHL draft coming up in Buffalo. And, this is when these guys shine, right? Like that's where, we have so many resources, whether it's elite prospects or TSN with Craig Button, or I mean, it's just endless, the amount of resources that are out there and the amount of rankings. And you talked to Mike about several players. One of them is Daxon Rudolph, who Dave M has been leading the Daxon Rudolph charge. I mean, how can you go wrong with a big right shot defenseman from Alberta who plays for the Prince Albert Raiders, right? And you talked to Mike about some other players too. I remember reading you talked to him about Ethan Belchets, and then there was Oliver Suvanto, who was a center from Finland, who honestly I know nothing about, Jamie, but the question I wanted to ask you was, what was your kind of main takeaway from your chat? Because obviously I think you'd agree it's so hard to if the Jets make the pick at 8th overall, it's so hard to predict who they'll take, because it depends a lot on who's taken right before they go. Yeah, and I mean, there's so many ways to go. I think we're locked down who the top two players are.
And I mean, from what I've seen from multiple mock drafts, like Ivar Stenberg could go down to 2 as far as 5, depending on what these guys want to do, because there's so many elite defensemen in this draft. And something that Mike said the other day that stood out to me, that not a single defenseman was drafted last year under the size of 6 feet, but that is not the case this year. I threw Belchech out there and Suvanto as wild card names. I had no intention of thinking that the Jets would draft them. They're not top 8 players on a lot of players' lists. But the one thing that stood out to me about both those guys is Belchech is 6'5", 228, just a monster, right? And then on a team like the Jets that are lacking a little bit of size up front, I just wondered. And Oliver Suvanto, another guy that plays in Liga, another kid that's playing in a pro league in Finland. And I understand that's not the quality of the American Hockey League, but the fact that these kids, like a Viggo Bjork that can play, men's at elite level, regardless of their age, it always impresses me. So, and Savanto's another big kid too, that you would love to see up the middle for the Winnipeg Jets. But I just threw some wild card names in there, not believing that they would even the Jets would be considering that in that aspect. But Daxon Rudolph, I'm with you, Dave. Like a kid that can play as impressively as he did throughout the Western Hockey League playoffs. And yes, they were, they win game 1 of the Western Hockey League final and then lose 4 straight to an incredibly powerful Everett Silvertips team. For Rudolph to play as well as he did in the Western Hockey League playoffs in his draft year impresses the heck out of me too. So the Jets have done a wonderful job lately adding to their prospect pool in terms of the blue line. I would love to see.
You're still good, Jamie. Oh, we lost him. He was there. He's cleaning off his phone, folks. Just for anyone who's wondering, Jamie's coming to us from outside the. He's not inside his normal studio, so I
guess it's still drizzling out there.
It's still raining. Jamie's still he's still there, but I guess I don't know if he can't see us, but we can still see him. So and he's gone.
It's possible that Jamie maybe clicked out, like he clicked out of the browser that he was in.
Oh, when he was cleaning his yeah. Okay, well that's fine. He's got the link on his phone, so he'll rejoin us and continue his thought about the 2026 NHL draft. That's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, we will be live covering the first round of the NHL draft, so you will not have to worry about that.
I'll be honest with you, the more and more we talk about Daxon Rudolph, like, look, we have no idea if the Jets are going to take Daxon Rudolph at 8th overall, but the more and more we talk about him, like, how often do you see like 18-year-old defensemen lead their team in scoring and 27 points in 19 playoff games, Dave? Like,
yeah.
And he's big and he's physical. Like, I feel like, I don't know. There's certain players like Viggo Bjork I'm interested in as well. We've talked a lot about Viggo Bjork over the last few weeks. We'll talk to Craig Button about him. He's a guy that he just might not be there at 8th overall, right? Based on what I'm reading. Like he could go, he goes high as 5th or 6th overall, right? So there's definitely no shortage of good players. And that's why I think, this decision, at least the way I look at this first overall pick, it's so interesting because you look at the Jets and they need to acquire a second line center, a top pairing right side defenseman. So could they move that first round pick to get that? But then there's a potential to get such a good player at 8th overall. Might not be a player that steps right into the NHL, Dave.
Yep.
But a player that 2 or 3 years from now can definitely have a big impact.
No, there's no question about it. And so that's why, especially with all the, the fact that he's an Alberta kid as he plays for Prince Albert. The Jets did pretty well when they drafted an Alberta kid from Prince Albert who played for Prince Albert. So we'll see if history repeat itself. Although Josh Morrissey was the 13th overall pick, if I recall correctly. So
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So Rudolph.
Dave, as the years pass,
yeah,
like I feel like I'm like that could have been like the beginning of like the days of our lives, like the sands through the hourglass. Yeah, I think JT's coming back on here.
He's almost back on.
I was going to say, as the years pass, it's harder to remember where these guys were taken by the Jets, right? Like,
yeah,
it's crazy to think Josh Morrissey was drafted 12 years ago, right? Like that's crazy.
At the time, like I remember when I came to Winnipeg like 8 years ago, they were like the part of the future for the Winnipeg Jets. And I remember specifically remember the 2018 playoffs where Paul Maurice is talking about, Josh Morrissey, and he hadn't hit his offensive potential yet. I specifically remember him saying that at a news conference, one of his media availabilities during that playoff run. And lo and behold, here he is, one of the top offensive defensemen in the NHL. And, before the Jets changed all the photos upstairs in the press box, when you walk in, they had all those draft photos of everybody rolling in, like Nikolai Ehlers and Jacob Trouba, et cetera, et cetera. And lo and behold, they're part of the, not so much, they are part of the current Winnipeg Jets, but not so much part of the future. So it's insane. But, I was talking about Daxon Rudolph before technology bailed on me. It's just exciting to think about this, because the Jets have done a great job, like restocking the cupboards, Boumediene, Frey, there's some great names and solid names coming up. So why not add another name into the pool, and a Western Canadian kid on top of that too. So I'm with you, Dave. I'm on that part. I'm on that train all day long for the Jets to pick there. But I wouldn't every time I see the name Viggo Bjork, and I'm like, okay, 5'9", 177, can he do this? But one thing Mike Morreale has said to me that stood out is just his drive. That's the reason why he's playing on the top line on his club team in Sweden, is because of the drive and the compete that he has. And Zach Benson, you think about why he's been so successful in the National Hockey League as a smaller type player. It's his compete level. Now, can I see Viggo Bjork playing up the middle for the Winnipeg Jets in the top six? I don't know. That's the hard part, right? And it's such going up against Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, et cetera, bigger centermen in the National Hockey League. I don't know, but if he's hanging around at 8-2, I don't know how you don't take a look at him too. So the fact that the spot the Jets are in is fantastic. It's exciting. So it could be any number of players, just depending on what other teams do in front, and you're kind of at the mercy of the 7 other teams in front of the Winnipeg Jets. It's unfortunate that you drop out of 7, but I still think there's a quality player there, and there's just so many names, and that's what makes the NHL draft so exciting. And in a year that had not many moments of excitement, it's always nice to have the NHL draft to be excited about. And there's conversations, maybe the Jets will trade that pick. I don't think they do, because of how important drafting and developing is to this organization, and the fact that you cost yourself so much of your future by trading first round picks to compete for the Stanley Cup. I don't see it this year being that year where you take that chance of losing another prospect in your prospect pool. But it is. We have still another month to go before the draft, and many more conversations to be had. The combine's coming up, and I know lots of things can change from there. Perhaps scouts might change their mind because of the World Championships. Albert Smits is there as well. From the people I've talked to, Chris Peters and Morreale, about the fact that this is the most NHL-ready defenseman that's in the draft right now. That's also exciting, but I don't know if Albert Smits is going to be hanging around when the Winnipeg Jets come around at eight.
So Jamie, sorry, Dave, just wanted to get this in there for Jamie. We should mention that the Jets announced earlier this week the details of the draft party. It's going to be Friday, Friday, June 26th.
It feels like January. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, I can't. This weather is let's be honest here.
It's depressing. I don't care what anybody says.
It doesn't end. It's the end of May here.
I should be talking with you, sunshine. I should be finding another position right now because the sun is beaming into my camera. But that is not the case. I'm finding shelter from the freezing cold rain here.
Although Jamie, the good news is that it's going from awful to boiling in a minute, because it's gonna be 30 all week, or over 30 all week, starting on I think Tuesday. So although I was going to say,
allegedly,
we'll see it we'll believe it when we see it. Although I was going to say to you, it would be a little anticlimactic if they do trade that pick to still have that draft party on the Friday at Canada Life and be like, okay,
is there not an indication they're not going to trade that pick because they've started the draft party? Oh, yeah. Remember how we're going to have that draft party to celebrate the 8th overall pick? Well, we have other ideas. Imagine if they traded at the draft. That would be even better. It's just I know you're all here and you're looking forward to the future of the Winnipeg Jets, but we traded that pick. That would be comedy at its finest.
That would be comedy. And I will tell you, though, that, and we mentioned that 2013.
Rumors Nightclub, don't forget.
Exactly. But Ezzy and I will recall, because we were there in 2013 at the draft in New Jersey when Bettman announced the trade of
it was Corey Schneider,
right,
for the, I want to say 6th overall pick, Jamie, and then they took Bo Horvat.
Yeah.
I think
not bad. Not a bad player.
6th overall. Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just, I just remember the buzz in the building in New Jersey, because he's like, because they were all booing him. He's like, "You're gonna like this." They all quieted down.
So. Sorry. I just Googled it, Jamie. It was the 9th overall pick, but regardless, yeah, we had fun. I remember Huss really liked that one. Just the way, just Gary Bettman is just, he gets booed. I know, Jamie, you'll probably agree with this. Like, it never gets old listening to Gary Bettman be booed. Like, sign me up for that person who enjoys that.
Yeah, I mean, he enjoys it, so it's just
exactly.
It's like Roger Goodell gets booed. Like, it's just, what a thankless job to, you, no matter what you do, someone's going to be angry about what you do. You have 32 bosses instead of just one, like normal people. It's just, I appreciate everything Gary Bettman goes through on a daily basis and the way he's run this league and everything. But I mean, that's another show for another time. But it's the abuse that man takes on a very important day for the future of many hockey clubs is very, very entertaining.
Jamie, let me tell you something. The 32 bosses are all clapping because their franchises have never been valued more, and everything is going up. So they can do all they want, but the much like Patrick Waugh said, the Stanley Cup rings are blocking out Jeremy Roenick's chirps. I think that the claps of the 32 owners who are very happy with the value. When Mark Chipman and David Thompson bought the Winnipeg Jets for, what was it, $180 million, and now they're worth over $1 billion. You say to yourself,
who's laughing right now? Who like you? The three of us need to get some money together. We got to go buy a pro sports team. That's like enough of this. And then we just become owners, and then they'll be like, "You guys can't talk about stuff because you own things." No. So, but that's after we get off the show.
I'm in, Jamie. I'm going to pull out.
$100. I'm going to pull out my whatever I have in my kids' RSPs and say, "Don't worry about it. We're buying a pro sports team. You don't need to go to school."
All right,
but we should buy like a pro, we should buy like a minor league baseball team or something. Even though I don't think the Gold Eyes would like that, but maybe our team will play like outside of Winnipeg. Like we'll buy a minor pro team and something like that. I think would work.
The Savannah Bananas. That's what we need to buy. That's
a team like that.
But just something, not the same team, but the same idea.
Yes.
We'll find the Harlem Globetrotters, turn them into baseball players. Yeah. We'll make a killing.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll move to Russell. We'll start up a baseball team, the Russell Potatoes, and then it'll be perfect.
It's good.
give out free French fries every game. Yeah. Like we're onto something here. Like,
I think we got something. But Jimmy, we'll let you go on this last one. But just some of the conversation about the Jets and the draft and that sort of thing. There's been some, comments about whether the Jets. We lost JT's vision, but hopefully he can still hear us. But there's been some comments about the Jets potentially wanting to move up. Jamie, can you still hear me? Oh, we lost Jamie again. Well, maybe that's a sign that either A, it wasn't a very good question, or we should go to break since it's after 10 o'clock. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. Should we let Jamie come back on the show? He might. I say, look, there he's back. There's back.
Well, I don't see him though. There we go. All righty.
Whatever. Jamie, I think Craig Button was on our show one time, and if someone phones you, it's over. So I don't know. I apologize. My wife was just phoning. I hope you guys can hear me.
We can hear you fine.
My wife.
Well, actually, hopefully that doesn't happen with Craig Button. He's joining us in 27 minutes, Jamie.
I think it was Craig Button, or it's one of the wise sage veterans of the National Hockey League. So don't tell CB that I said that, because we're in his good books right now, and I want to remain in there. Make sure you guys ask him about his favorite player of the draft, because 3 years ago already? It was Colby Barlow. I remember that. So
it's funny because when you mentioned it about 15 minutes ago to Ez about the draft guys and how they can go on and they can carry a show. We're like, we're having Craig on, and there's nothing we love more before the draft is to have Craig on so he can share his insight and his wisdom into the players that are available this year. So we'll be doing that with Craig. But the question I was going to ask you was the idea of I think Jamie's wife is very persistent. She has called him like 4 or 5 times now. So
I'm starting to get Michael Russo vibes from this interview. No.
I think we're going to have to let Jamie go on this one. As I'll say my question for you on the other side of the break.
Oh, no, Jamie's
Oh,
Okay, sorry about that.
Come on,
My
man.
wife keeps phoning me. It's like one of those things.
my wife. Well, Jamie.
My wife.
Okay. Yeah, that's our signal.
Sorry, I don't
Jamie,
own her. The person I've chosen to spend the rest of my life with, Desiree, keeps phoning me, so I apologize. So
hopefully all is
hit the
well.
question before she phones the third time. Go.
I was going to
Your
say, well,
better
no,
half.
maybe she wants to answer the question. Maybe she has insight into the answer. But
She told me she could do the job, no problem. She just said you just have to sound really serious and angry. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what we do. I know.
That's a pretty
Yeah.
good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
gesture a lot, make some angry hand gestures. She'd be good. No, the question I was going to ask you was: there's some comments, some things out there that the Jets could potentially move up. But do you see that really happening? Do you see the need to do that? Because to me, even at 8, you still have a chance to draft a very good player, and I don't see the Jets having the draft capital to afford what it's going to take to kind of get up to, I don't know, 2 or 3.
Yeah, like we just talked about the quality of players that are hanging around there. I don't think any team, like that was the one question I asked Mike about, is just like the fact that, San Jose, Chicago, and Calgary have been rebuilding for so long, and their prospect cupboards are so loaded. Would they be interested in moving down? And it didn't sound like, from what Mike said, it doesn't. No, because of the players that are hanging around there. So could you imagine what that would cost to even move up a spot? Never mind up to 2 or 3. It just. And Dave, you just said it. There isn't enough draft capital or the type of player on your roster that you could give up or in your prospect pool to move up that high, nor should the Jets be interested in any type of shenanigans like that. So it's fun to think about, and that's what we love about this time of year is the rumors, the ideas that people have, what the Jets should do. But I remember an NFL meme that went around before the NFL draft, and just because it was across the bottom, it said, "Remember, you guys don't know what you're talking about." And it was when it was the reaction from respective draft parties. And it was, my favorite is the Buffalo Bill one where they pick Josh Allen, and all these Buffalo Bill fans are like, no, they're so mad. And look what Josh Allen is. And just across the bottom, you guys don't know anything about the draft. So it's just, that's what this really is. As much as people want to say, and they watch this player and stuff like that, they do not watch the amount of film that draft experts do, or on top of that, the respective draft teams or scouts of your favorite NHL team. I'm sorry. You can say what you want and you can understand hockey all you want, but you don't know what these guys know. And sometimes they don't know enough about respective players because you just don't. That's just the way things are. So have fun. Think about what the Jets could do. Believe what you want. Live in your fantasy world. Just it's the fun time of year. This is what we have to work with right now, because the Jets aren't in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. They're going to get a good player at 8. They're going to make a good pick, but moving up is just not. They just don't have the draft capital, Dave, as you said, to make a move of that stature right now.
All right. Well, there he goes. We're going to let him get into his car and get warmed up because he's out there trying to support, I believe, one of his kids playing baseball. Is it, JB?
Soccer today, man. Soccer. Yeah. Unfortunately, one of my children decided an outdoor sport that starts at this time of year, and it's the coldest. It's the worst May ever. So
it really is. Like
it's so bad.
To that, right? Like May has just been like we're just going from spring to fall, I think, at this point. Jamie. Like, we're not.
There's no 4 seasons in Winnipeg. It's just summer and winter. That's all it is.
It's funny. It used to be like that, and then we had this changeover, but this year is much more a throwback. All right, Jamie. Yeah. Well, we will talk to you more than 4 times. I can tell you that much. He is a friend of the show. He's Jamie Thomas, the team reporter for the Winnipeg Jets. Thanks, Jamie. Boys. There he goes. That's Jamie Thomas, who we always appreciate having on this show and providing us with his insight into the Winnipeg Jets. All right, Ezzy, we will head to commercial break. You mentioned the World Championships in your conversation, in your questioning to Jamie. We'll talk about that on the other side of these words from our sponsors.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca. For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Rady JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We appreciate Jamie Thomas of the Jets joining us in the first hour of the show. We'll continue the Jets talk, Ezzy, into the next segment, and then we will welcome Craig Button to share his time and insight and analysis on the upcoming NHL draft and maybe the playoffs and maybe the Jets. We'll have lots to talk about with Craig. We won't lack for conversation with Craig Button when he joins us, the head of scouting for TSN. But from your perspective, as what has anything jumped out at you? I know we're not watching the World Championships the same way we're watching the NHL playoffs, but as you said, guys are performing. Mark Scheifele, 4 points. Velarde had a goal and an assist in that game. He had an assist yesterday in a win for Canada. Nino Niederreiter, Billy Heinola, Leon Gavanke. I mean, it is obviously good that these guys are. I mean, Leon's obviously not a member of the Jets anymore. He is now in the DEL for the last.
Yeah, but he'll always be a Jet, Dave.
Yeah, he will always be a Jet. The 2017 5th overall pick for Winnipeg. But again, just the importance, I guess, of these guys being able to play meaningful hockey into May and getting a chance to kind of, maybe end their season, on the importance of ending their season kind of on a positive note and then heading into a summer of training.
And Doug, we are talking about the Worlds now, finally. But yeah, I mean, some people, I think, like Dave, we've talked about this so many times over the years. Like, I don't think some people realize how big of a tournament this is in Europe, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, because we have the World Cup of Hockey, or the Four Nations Challenge, obviously Four Nations face off, but it's going to become the World Cup of Hockey. The World Cup of Hockey and Olympics, I think you'd agree, Dave, when they've been on and they've had NHL participation, they always overshadow the World Hockey Championship. But I'm a big fan of this tournament. Like I said, it's always been kind of a bucket list thing for me to watch this tournament in Europe. I definitely don't think it's going to happen until my kids are a little bit older, but hopefully it happens one day. But like, to your point, Dave, like seeing Mark Scheifele, score the hat trick, and the goal that he scored on his knees, like that first goal, was incredible. The game winning goal assisted by Celebrini, like, I mean, you just love to see it as a Jets fan, a Jets observer. You love to see Scheifele and Velarde and DeMello doing well, and Nino Niederreiter as well, like playing for Team Switzerland. Like the way I look at it, Dave, like Nino Niederreiter, I think you would agree, like he had a down year, right? And you look at him playing for Team Switzerland. Obviously, he hit Niederreiter hit 1,000 games, so that was a big accomplishment this year for the Jets. But you look at him, scoring, and I look at it, and I think it can only be positive for when he comes back next year to Winnipeg and plays for the Jets, right? And we talked about, Nino Niederreiter, Vladislav Nemestikov as being two veteran players that maybe, the Jets could move or possibly even buy out, right? Like that's been brought up. So I look at, players succeeding and playing at the World Championships can only translate back to the NHL, and doesn't necessarily mean that, Nino Niederreiter is going to score 30 goals and 60 points this year. That's not what we're talking about. But I mean, you might as well get your confidence back up playing meaningful games, right? Like these are like, look at, I put it this way, Dave, like Jamie Thomas, who we had on last segment, mentioned this. Sidney Crosby, who has literally accomplished, I've made this argument before, and this is how highly I think of Sidney Crosby. I think he's the second best forward ever.
Wow.
I think after Wayne Gretzky, and I realize, Mario Lemieux's in that conversation, Mark Messier is in that conversation, but I think that highly of Sidney Crosby that I think at the very least, Dave, you would agree, he is a top 5 forward of all time. Just look at his numbers and look what he's accomplished and look what he's doing at the age of 38. Yeah, right. Like I know at the age of 38, I wasn't accomplishing what Sidney Crosby was accomplishing, Dave, on the ice. And like my point was going to be like, Crosby's got 3 Stanley Cups, Olympic golds, World Junior golds. He's won gold with Team Canada at the Four Nations, the World Cup of, like his resume is, it's really almost incomparable, right? Yeah. Like there's only a few players that have the type of resume that Sidney Crosby has, but yet he still goes over and he plays for Canada at the World Hockey Championship. Why is that? Well, because he wants to represent his country. And he wants to play meaningful hockey. Like at the end of the day, all of these guys are competitors, right? And if they can represent their country and keep playing hockey, and Crosby was in the playoffs this year, right? Like so, Crosby had every reason to not play this year. Like his age, like we said, it's an Olympic year. He was in the playoffs for Pittsburgh. Like you would think, Sid the Kid would just be like, oh, no, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna enjoy a little downtime with the family, friends, right? But no, what does he do? Gets on a plane, goes and represents Team Canada. So I think that shows you what this tournament not means to us, Dave, because nobody really cares. I don't think anybody really cares what I think of the World Hockey Championship. But
I do. That's why I asked you the question.
But when Sidney Crosby goes to Europe in a year in which he had, like I said, every reason to not go, I think shows you the importance of this tournament. So yeah, it's just great to see Scheifele succeeding, Dave. It's great to see Velarde popping in goals. It's great to see DeMello. I don't think many people, that was one thing Jamie mentioned. I don't think a lot of people knew that DeMello, this is the first time he's ever represented Team Canada. So think about that, right? DeMello's how old? 31, 32, 33 years old?
33, I think.
And this is the first time he's ever represented his country. Like this means something. This is a big deal. Yeah. Regardless if there's hockey fans out there that don't really pay attention to this tournament, and I get it. The Jets season is long. Some people just want to focus on the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I'm not one of those people. I still love, watching the highlights. I've caught as much of the Team Canada games as I can. Shout out to Denton Matejchuk from Dominion City, Manitoba. Yeah. He scored a goal against, was that against Norway or Slovenia? I forget. I think it might have been Slovenia that he scored the goal against.
Or was it Hungary?
Or Hungary, yeah. But anyways, Denton Matejchuk had a good season for the Blue Jackets. So got to get that in there for Hockey Manitoba. Matejchuk is a big fan of his. Great future ahead of him for that kid. So yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, Dave, to kind of wrap up my thought on this is the fact that these guys are playing meaningful games here and doing well. Like, Scheifele is coming off of a career year. Now he's playing with Macklin Celebrini. So I mean, this is just like the cherry on top, right?
He's on a line with Robert Thomas and Gabriel Velarde, which is getting folks excited.
Yeah, he's been on with Celebrini at times, but you're right. The line is Thomas, Velarde, Scheifele.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it's just funny though when people have like I clip something and everyone was like, I'm like, oh, Robert Thomas, Gabriel Velarde, and Mark Scheifele, and everybody's like, hopefully those other two are telling Robert Thomas how great the Forks are right now, and although maybe not telling about the weather in Winnipeg right now. But yeah, you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's funny how, although I clipped the Ville Heinola 2 goals and everyone was losing their minds. I'm like, well, it was against Great Britain, folks. Let's remember that. But they were pretty goals. He went top corner for both of his tallies, and good to hear Dan Robertson on the call for those. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch the tournament and see how these guys are doing and how they're able to kind of, like you said, or like Jamie said, sorry, Azzy, the wisdom you gain, and obviously at they're older players, but you can still learn something, right? You can still be around Sidney Crosby. Being around Sidney Crosby, as good as Mark Scheifele's season was, that's the kind of person you want to have him learning from. So not a bad thing from that perspective. And now, shifting gears a little bit, as we were earlier this week, we did some media. Tyrel Bauer of the Manitoba Moose, a 2026 rounder of the Winnipeg Jets. He was named the Yanick Dupré Memorial Award as AHL Man of the Year for all of the charity work he does, or all the work, I should say, not necessarily all charity, but all the work, the good things that he does off the ice. And I'm not going to list them all because it was it's a lengthy list of all the things he does in our community. But I think it's something that bears mentioning, because I think, we tend to think of these guys in what they're producing for the teams on the ice. But when you see what they are doing off of it, especially with the Moose, because the Moose are more, I'm not saying the Jets don't do things in the community. They make the hospital visits, but the Moose are much more heavily involved. They do a lot more. They go to the Silo Mission. They do work with that. They do all these different things with different charities in this province and making our community a better place. And Tyrel Bauer, who has been the team nominee the last 2 years, he becomes the third ever winner of the award in the Manitoba Moose organization. The last one was Jimmy Olney, who won in that's money from Kenny Water Bottle, Man of the Year. Ken, we would like to have a chat. But Jimmy Olney, the former captain of the Moose, he won it 4 years ago, and Jimmy Roy won it 23 years ago, Ezzy. So it's been a few years since Jimmy won it, but Tyrel Bauer becomes the third member of the Moose organization to win the award of AHL Man of the Year, and just for all the work that he does in the community. And so we spoke to him. We asked him some of the things about winning, and here was his thoughts on why it's important to give back to the community here in Manitoba.
Yeah, it's I mean, I've said it before, but as a hockey player, we are in a really unique position to give back to the community. I mean, our job is to play hockey, but we wouldn't have that if it wasn't for the fans in the community, cheering us on and supporting us. So to be able to give back to them and just show our genuine appreciation for what they do for us is special. And furthermore, everybody is going through something else something in their life. They have their own challenges unique to them. Being able to interact with fans, whether it's through the foster family program or the WJHA hockey program that I work with, or through Project 11 in these classroom visits where you get to interact with kids and fans. People just want to feel connected. They want to feel heard. They want to feel seen. And that's a universal experience for everybody. So being able to go there and just interact and have fun and, just have some laughs or a smile, can really go a long way. I know personally it goes a long way for me when I'm in a spot like that, or in a low spot, or going through something. Sometimes you're not looking for advice or to fix something at the time. You're just looking to know that people are around you and they care. So really special to be able to interact with the community and bring everybody together, show our appreciation, but also just be there for each other. We all have a lot of pride to play in Winnipeg or be in Winnipeg. And that's a common thing that we get to share together.
So there you go. There's Tyrel Bauer, and you can just see what a thoughtful young man he is, as he right. That he's really come into a leadership role with this team, and the connection to the city. He's a big fan of the illegal curve sandwiches, but we know over and above that, the amount of things he does, win or lose, meeting with young fans after every game, continuing the foster family program that was started by Jimmy Olney, and maintaining that program for the last 3 years since Jimmy left, or 2 years, whatever it's been since Jimmy left. I mean, it's been pretty significant to see the impact he's had on the community and the impact the community's had on Tyrel Bauer.
Absolutely. I mean, we are lucky to have Ty Bauer in the city of Winnipeg and in the Jets organization playing for the Moose. That's the first thing I would say. Like, Ty Bauer, to use a boxing nickname, because obviously Ty Bauer is not afraid to drop the gloves. Like, he's the real deal. Mm-hmm. And that obviously was Evander Holyfield's nickname. He was one of my favorite boxers. I like that era of like Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, like Mike Tyson, Dave. Like, that's my favorite era of boxing. So, but yeah, like Bauer is the real
George
deal.
Foreman.
George Foreman, get him in there.
He was a bit earlier than that group, but
remember Razor Ruddock upset Mike Tyson to go back a little bit. I always like Lennox Lewis though, even though I used to not like that, he was Canadian, but then he represented Great Britain because he won gold for Canada at the Olympics. But regardless, Lennox was one of my favorite guys. But yeah, Tyrel Bauer is just genuine. Like, obviously, Dave, you know him really well, covering the Moose over the years, but like, he's just, like, he just does all of this community work, and he doesn't, I think he would tell you, like, he doesn't need this recognition, right? But I think he deserves this recognition. So winning AHL Man of the Year, to me, is just awesome. And there's a legacy, like you said, of Manitoba Moose players winning this award. Jimmy Olney, Jimmy Roy, right? So I think it speaks to, like you said, the Manitoba Moose organization, the Jets organization, for all of the work that they do. And we hear about some of it, and you cover it, Dave, on the website, illegalcurve.com. But there's a lot of things that these guys do that never get covered. Mm-hmm. And Ty Bauer is the type of guy, like, he'll stop and talk to any fan, right? He'll sign an autograph for any fan.
Yep.
And we've had him on the show several times. And we talk a lot about, how he sticks up for his teammates. He's a damn good defenseman too. And he logs big minutes, like, goes out there on the penalty kill. Really good defensive defenseman. So just great for Ty. I mean, I could spend 10, 15, 20 minutes talking about Ty Bauer. Like, he's just, like I said, the city is lucky to have him playing for the Moose. And I can't wait to see him get his NHL debut. Hopefully that happens sooner rather than later, because definitely, he's played 200 plus games in the AHL, and he definitely has earned it.
Well, and it's interesting, Ezzy, because he's the kind of guy who looked up what the award was all about, right? Some guys would be like, okay, I won the award, cool. But he actually went and did research and actually learned that one of his coaches in Seattle was a recipient a few years back. And also, obviously, that, Jimmy Roy, Kyle Hagel, that was who was a coach of his in junior. And here's the last sort of, it's a long interview. We've got the whole thing on illegalcurve.com and our YouTube channel. But here's Ty talking about being recognized by his teammates and across the AHL.
Yeah, it is special. And, it is a representation of the culture, no doubt, in the room. But it's just, to me, it's just about being a good person and building relationships, and that's in the community, and that's with your teammates, with people in the organization, with a stranger, you meet on the street. It's about just being kind and respectful, and really, showing to your teammates or to the community or whoever it may be that, you're there for them and you're genuine in that care for them. So it is very special. These awards, if you will, I don't see them that way there, but they're very, it's my greatest achievement is to be able to be recognized in that fashion, because it has a lasting impact on the community and other people rather than just me. So very, very grateful for that.
And just in terms of doing these, my voice times two, Ezzy. I thought I'd clipped it a little bit better.
Say, I recognize that dulcet tone of Dave M.
All right. Well, you can watch the full interview we did with Tyrel Bauer on our YouTube channel or on illegalcurve.com under the Manitoba Moose section. And it's worth watching. He's a very thoughtful young man, and he gives a lot of credit to his teammates and everyone around him. But of course, that's an individual award, so he has to accept the praise that he earned. We'll head to break, and then when we come back on the other side of the break, Craig Button of TSN will join us to talk about the NHL draft.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca. For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Rady JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsberg. We're waiting for TSN's Craig Button to join us in a few minutes to discuss the 2026 draft, which is just over a month away. The excitement is palpable in Winnipeg, as you can feel it. It's like the storm that's in here right now. It's going to burst. Then it'll have some plus weather, and then we'll get excited for the draft because it'll feel like draft time as opposed to still winter time right now in Winnipeg. But I think the other thing is, I guess you want to talk about the playoffs. I mean, we haven't talked really. It's funny. Playoffs have been underway. I feel like we haven't talked about the playoffs at all on these last few shows. So anything jump out at you? The Colorado Avalanche are down 0-2 to the Las Vegas Golden Knights, who it looked like it was like going to be an even series for 50 minutes of that game. And then suddenly Jack Eichel scores, and then the dam seemed to break in Colorado last night.
I still don't think that series is over. I realize that Colorado now, Dave, has to win 4 or 5 games, right? Which is not going to be easy to do. But
they don't have to win 5, Ezzy.
No, they don't have to win 5. They only have to win 4. But the point is that Vegas is playing really well right now, right? And you look at it like Colorado through 2 periods yesterday, right? Up 1-0, looking good. And then Vegas obviously explodes for 3 goals, one being an empty netter in the third period, right? But, Jack Eichel, who I believe didn't score a goal in the entire second round, ties up the game.
I think he hadn't scored a goal in 10 games, they said.
Yeah. So that would be the whole second round, right?
Yeah.
And I just think this Vegas team, not only are they really deep, but they're playing a brand of hockey that's really tough to play against. And Carter Hart has been really good, right? But like Vegas, they're first off, they're, like we said, like Mitch Marner joined a team that was already stacked. And look, I realize that a lot of people are talking about, Cale Makar being out of the lineup. Mark Stone, the Vegas captain, is out of the lineup, right? So it's not like, I don't think you can just say, well, it's Cale Makar. Like what I'm trying to say, Dave, I think is that, you have to give them credit. Like, this is a really good team. I realize that, they struggled this year, and at one point they were in a wild card spot, right? And that Pacific Division was definitely not as strong as the Central Division, but everybody, I think, before the series started, had Colorado as the favorite. But certainly now, like, throw out that narrative, right, Dave? Like, down 2-0, going back to Vegas, they're in a lot of trouble. And I realize, like, there's some negativity swirling around Vegas. Like, I don't know if you want to touch on it, but the whole Bruce Cassidy situation obviously hasn't sat well with a lot of people. And I get it,
especially considering Vegas had to ask Philadelphia for permission to talk to Tortorella.
Right. And I get it. Like, it's been thrown out there and talked about many times. Like, for Vegas, like, why would you want to be paying a coach to coach against you, right? Because Edmonton and Vegas are obviously in the same division, right? So, like,
LA reached out apparently too.
Yeah, that's right. We should mention that. So both teams in their division, right? So I don't think it's that. I think it's obvious why Vegas doesn't want to give Bruce Cassidy permission. But I just think it doesn't sit well. Like, you see the NHL Coaches Association basically coming out with a statement saying that the Vegas Golden Knights should allow Bruce Cassidy to find another coach, find another employer, right? And like you said, Philly is paying John Tortorella to coach the Golden Knights, right? So it's like they benefited from having permission to speak to Torts, right? So there's definitely no shortage of negativity swirling around the Golden Knights. They're definitely not my favorite team right now, mainly because of the way they've been treating the media. I think I don't like that. Like, I just think
I wasn't upset to see them get to the $100,000 fine and lose their second round pick. And I'm glad the NHL stuck to its guns.
Absolutely.
And didn't rescind it because
they denied the appeal, right?
Yeah.
Like they denied the appeal. So Vegas will not have a second round pick. And you can say whatever you want, and you can say, well, that second round pick is going to be a late pick. But that's a free player that the Golden Knights won't have. So like you said, I think the second round pick stings more. The $100,000, I assume Bill Foley just pulls $100,000 out of his pocket.
Yeah,
like that's
the way you would 20
nothing to him. Yeah, exactly. $20 to me is $100,000 to Foley, Dave. That's a good analogy. Or that's not an analogy. Maybe what is that? A metaphor? Was that? I don't know.
Was it a simile? I don't know.
Yeah, simile. I have no
English
idea.
Class?
It's been way too long since grade 8 English.
Yeah.
But the Vegas start has obviously been surprising, but even more surprising is how Montreal played in that first period against Carolina. Like, Carolina's now on their toes, and I was, when I was talking about the first round series, like, a lot of people again had Carolina as a heavy favorite, and as far as I'm concerned, I had both of these series going to 6 or 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll wait and see if that actually happens, but Montreal's a really good team, and at this time of year, when you're getting the goaltending from Dobish, and everyone's firing all cylinders, and you're healthy, right? Like, this Montreal team it's not just Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. It's Bryce Slavkovsky, it's Ivan Demidov, it's Alex Newhook, who's got 7 goals in the playoffs, right? It's Kirby Dach. Philip Deneau scored a goal against Carolina in game 1. Like, this Montreal team they're no joke. Yeah. And if Montreal beats Carolina, like, why can't they win it all? So I love it
when you have a hot goalie, as he
exactly right. And obviously, their defense, I think that was the big advantage that everyone was looking at in terms of Carolina versus Montreal, saying, well, Carolina's deeper on defense. I don't know how much deeper they are. Like, Lane Hudson, Mike Matheson, Caden Gooley, Noah Dobson, Jaden Struble, like,
Yeah.
I'm missing somebody in there. I think I got 5 of the defensemen, but they're a very talented group. I guess Carrier would be another defenseman that they've got. So I think Montreal, like, again, I think these are going to be long series. Like, obviously Carolina has to win tonight, right? Like, game 2 is critical. They don't want to go down 2-0 like Colorado is, but I love to see it. Like, I love to see the upsets. I love to see, I just want to see, at the end of the day, I want to see a close series. And I think these 2 series, even though right now, like, the Colorado series is looking like Colorado's done, I wouldn't count them out right now. Not when you've got, McKinnon and the possibility of Makar coming back for game 3.
No, that's true. And I do think, though, it's amazing to watch the difference, right, between 2 teams, right? As you got Montreal, who went to 7
By the way,
games.
sorry to quickly cut in, Dave. Just wanted to, I think you'll like this, that Craig texted me, and he's going to jump on in a couple minutes.
Okay. So, but I was just going to say, the amazing thing to me is that you have Montreal, who went to 2 7 games, both their rounds went 7 games, versus Carolina, who swept their opening 2 rounds. So quite an interesting disparity there.
Did you see the stat? Carolina had only allowed 3 first period goals through the whole first 2 rounds. And then they let in 3 goals in, what was it? I don't even know how many minutes, 10 minutes or something like that.
It was something like that.
It's just incredible, right? So how can you not love seeing that, right? And I'm going to go on the record, Dave, by the way, as saying I do really want to see a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup for the first time since 1993. And I think it would be pretty awesome if it was Montreal, because obviously they won the last Stanley Cup in 1993. So I am one of those people. I know some people don't. Some people say, I don't care because American teams have a lot of Canadian players on there. But I am one of those people that still I want to see that Canadian team bring the cup back to Canada.
Well, and again, the other player who I'm enjoying watching in this series, though, is Logan Stankoven, who's all of 5'8" and has 7 goals in 9 playoff games. So
that line has been incredible. Jason Blake's kid, Jackson Blake, who obviously we saw at UND. Anybody who watched him play for UND knew that he was going to be a really good player. And then Taylor Hall, Dave, has found the fountain of youth.
Yeah. No, it's like real look, and Rob Brindamore acknowledged it. I mean, look, these guys had 12 days off between games, which is not an insignificant delay but that's I guess the advantage versus disadvantage of rest versus rust, right? So we'll see what kind of rebound the Carolina Hurricanes can have, and of course, as he says, the Colorado Avalanche. One other note I should make mention of is this is the off season now with the Manitoba Moose and the signing season. So Samuel Fagemo, who is the leading goal scorer for the Manitoba Moose, he signed a 3-year deal to return home to Sweden. So he's back in the SHL as for the next 3 years. And not a huge surprise. He definitely had a down year from his perspective. Scored 43 goals, I think, for Ontario 2 years ago. And then last year with the Manitoba Moose down to 19. So not quite the same level of success for Samuel. So he signs in for Landa for a 3-year deal. So he is off to join this SHL.
And that's going to be a big hole to fill, right? Because like you said, even though Fagemo's numbers were a little bit down, his offensive totals were a little bit down this year with the Moose, like he was still one of their top scorers, right? So I saw that and I was like, I don't know if Dave, you're more inside to the Moose organization. I'm not sure if they expected that. But certainly Fagemo was, I mean, it would have been nice if he was in the Moose lineup next year. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need. I think he was underutilized on the power play. I don't know. I mean, his biggest asset is his shot, and they didn't set him up for a lot of opportunities in that regard. So, and that's maybe a function of the D and not really having an offensively minded defenseman. But regardless, I mean it's definitely a loss. And the only other note I will mention for Jets fans is Markus Lopinen, the 2024 5th rounder. He's a Finnish prospect. He played in Victoria for the Victoria Royals of the WHL 2 years ago, went back and signed a 2-year contract with HPK in Liga. He played last year with them, had 3 goals, 3 assists in 40 games. More of a responsible defensive-minded forward. But he has had his contract mutually terminated with HPK, and he is off to Lake Superior State, in Sault Ste. Marie, I think. No, is it Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan?
Well,
Anyways,
I've been to Sault Ste. Marie once, I think, because Sault Ste. Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, this was a long time ago, like 15 years ago, but Sault Ste. Marie is right on the border, right?
Yeah, there's two
like
Saults,
with Ontario and Michigan.
Yeah, but there's hold on, and I'll get it right, because I don't want to piss off the people of the Sioux.
It's kind of like Niagara Falls, right? Like there's a Niagara Falls Canadian side, Niagara Falls American side, right?
Yeah. He'll be on the Michigan side playing in the NCAA for Lake Superior State. So he'll be a Laker, you'll be able to watch him in the NCAA next year. So bit of movement there when it comes to Marcus Loppinen. He's a nice kid. We talked to him a couple times during the Jets development camp, which we'll be seeing another one of those coming up very soon.
I feel like this segment has now become, we can call it waiting for Craig Button. Craig said he was coming on. So the thing is, like, we're getting closer to 11 o'clock here, and we might have to go a little bit later because, I mean, there's so many prospects to talk about, right? We talked to Jamie Thomas about this, but when you're picking at 8th overall, if the Jets were picking a higher, like top 3, top 5, obviously, we could narrow it down a little bit, Dave, but a couple of weeks ago, you brought up all the prospects and you wrote about them on illegalcurve.com, right? Like there's honestly, like, I look at some of these lists and there's like 10 or 12, like I said, different guys that could go at 8th overall. So we're going to have to get in as many prospects as we can with Craig Button. The one other thing that I wanted to bring up with Craig, I'm sure you saw this, Dave, which was a little bit surprising. Shout out to our boy Brad Elliott Schlossman, who writes for the Grand Forks Herald, but Carson Carroll's Manitoba defenseman. He is committed to play for the University of North Dakota. So next year, UND will have Keaton Verhoff and Carson Carroll's on their back end. So UND year after year is stacked, but that was a pretty big move because obviously Carroll's is projected to be a top 10 pick.
And before we forget, Ezzy, and I don't want to forget, maybe you want to give a shout out to a certain hockey team from Manitoba, junior hockey team.
No, absolutely. And we gave them a shout out on a legal curve. The Niverville Nighthawks, right? Only the third team in Manitoba history to win the Centennial Cup, right? So pretty amazing. Didn't lose a game, right? Like this Niverville Nighthawks team was absolutely stacked. So shout out to the Nighthawks, head coach Dwight Hurst, that whole organization. Pretty incredible to win the Centennial Cup in just your 4th year of existence, right, Dave? So just awesome for the community of Niverville and awesome for the MJHL.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. And yeah, I mean, I think the last shout out, Ezzy, we should do, because I promised we had someone reach out and ask if we would give a birthday shout out. So happy 32nd birthday, as you have to wish them a happy 32nd birthday. Sophia, her husband, reached out to us. Big fan. They're in San Diego, California. They're huge
Happy
Jets
birthday,
fans,
Sophia.
But also big Illegal Curve fans. Sophia doesn't miss a show, I'm made to understand. And they were here in December to see a Jets game. And they asked if we did Cameo. I said, we're not a Cameo group. We're happy just to give you a birthday shout out. We're not necessarily, I mean, Ezzy, are you on Cameo? I should have asked that.
I'm not on Cameo. I thought about it, and then I realized that I don't know how many people are going to pay for me. But I see Craig's in the before we bring Craig on. Yes, happy birthday to Sophia. Happy 32nd birthday. And as always, thanks for listening to IC and also San Diego. I mean, does it get any bit nicer than San Diego? That's a pretty nice place to live.
Well, let's bring Craig Button on of TSN. Hi, Craig. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, guys. I forgot my charger, so my computer. I was trying to get my computer charged up, so I'm working off my phone. But my apologies for doing that. So, and
Craig, we'll let it go. We'll let it go, but only this time.
Open. I got to run out and get a charger.
Well, that's okay, Craig. We've got lots to talk to you about because this is one heck of a draft. So, just from a overall kind of standpoint, and obviously folks can read your Craig's list on TSN, but from your perspective, how much excitement is there? Because I mean, again, Jets fans, once the season ended, they started to turn their attention to the 7th overall pick, then they slid down to the 8th overall pick. But just from your perspective, this first round, just how deep is this first round?
It's not deep at all. It's probably deep to about 2. Every team picking after 2 is not going to get a very good player. Just the way it is. I mean, yeah, it's a, I make this comment all the time because we people go, well, how deep is the draft? How deep is the draft? So just some numbers. In any draft, approximately 45 players will play 35 games or more in the NHL. 350 games or more in the NHL, of varying degrees of success. That's the historical numbers. Approximately 45. Some years it might be 48. Some years it might be 43. But that's the approximate number.
Mm-hmm.
What I have learned over the years is the teams that get players that can play 350 games or more over the course of their careers, it was a good draft. The teams that don't get those players will tell you it was a bad draft. So, the job is to go and find players that you feel have potential. Every team, every scout is doing that. Then to work and understand what the development path is for them, and then the third thing is being patient with that process. And like you're looking at the players that are the best players outside the NHL, and they've all been good players. You don't draft a 4-goal scorer and go, hey, I think he might be a 40-goal scorer in the NHL. You're drafting players that have been top players in their respective leagues around the world. And now you got to try to transition to the best league in the world against players that are the best in the world that are 8, 9, 10 years older than you in a lot of cases. And you got, so it goes without saying that it's an inexact science, but that's how you have to look at it. I feel that you go and try to find players. Like your job is to find players. There will be a handful of players drafted in the first round that will not have NHL careers. There will be players drafted after the second round that will turn out to be really good NHL players. That's just the fact of the matter. And I think that's how I always try to portray the draft. Figure out what fits for you, celebrate who you're drafting, and then work like mad to help them be the best they can be and eventually, hopefully, help your team.
Well, Craig, we don't expect... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, we don't expect Carson Carroll's, the Manitoba kid from Cypress Rivers, to be available when the Jets draft 8th overall. But just how exciting is this young man? And also, were you surprised that he's making the switch from the WHL to play at UND?
Well, let me deal with the bigger part of that second question, Dave, because I think that these young players and Carson qualifies, Daxon Rudolph qualifies. We saw it last year with Cole Perfetti, and there's many others. I think Caleb Malhotra is going to go to BU next year. He's already informed. And Carson and Caleb are going to be high draft picks. When you've been as good as they have been in junior hockey, you're looking for the next challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And that next challenge now for these players is to keep advancing their game. They can't go play in the American Hockey League. They're not, in my view, they're not ready for the NHL. So what is the next step that can help them move along that path? And I think that the NCAA has offered that path, has offered a platform and a scenario where they can work on those areas of their game. You're drafting Carson Carls because you believe he's going to be a top-notch player. But the physical maturity part, he's got to work on it. And so now, could he play in the NHL at 19? Yeah, I think he could. But the strength, the physical maturation, just trying to go through playing against older players, stronger players. That's what the pro hockey's about. So I think that step that they take to the NCAA helps them prepare that way so that, look at Porter Martone. Porter Martone was a dominant player in the OHL, goes to Michigan State, gets that next step, and now he's ready to step right in the NHL. You also get your contract moving ahead a little bit. You don't have to go to the American Hockey League. Now, the top players might not fall into that category as much as others, but I'll use Cole Perfetti as an example. Cole Perfetti was a really good player, the 18th overall pick by Calgary last year. Him going to North Dakota, working on his strength, and he'll probably go to North Dakota again next year. But at 20, because he's been able to work on that strength part of his game, now he might be ready to step right into the NHL instead of having to go spend a year. Because those years at 18 and 19, when you've been so dominant in junior hockey, you're playing so many games, it's really hard to go work on that physical part because the schedule doesn't allow you that. Now it does, and now you can bypass the American Hockey League ostensibly and start your NHL contract rolling. And now that becomes a year earlier to get you places, in terms of going up the ladder, in terms of salary, that becomes a factor. So this opportunity for the players is, I don't look at it as them turning their back on junior hockey or the CHL. I just look at it as another opportunity for them to develop. When it comes to Carson, I think he's the best defenseman in the draft. And there's good defensemen in this draft, but I think he's the best defenseman in the draft. His command of the game, his ability to play every single situation is phenomenal. his coach and his defense coach in Prince George, Jim Playfair, I think is one of the very best development coaches and defense coaches on the planet. I think he's fantastic. And, Carson had to weigh that with, the next step of it. And, that wouldn't have been an easy decision for Carson because Carson has developed so tremendously. I think Keaton Verhoff had to make a similar type decision when he left James Patrick. James Patrick's a superb he's a superb coach, superb defense coach. But, these are the decisions that the players are making. And, it's just about going to that next challenge. And I'm never going to fault the player. That's the wrong way to put it. I'm never going to question a player's commitment to trying to continue to push his level of play higher and to try to take advantage of different development opportunities that will allow for that.
Well, Craig, everybody from Manitoba hearing that is loving hearing that because he would tie Nolan Patrick for being the highest Manitoban drafted, right? Because we've never had a first overall pick, but we've had a second overall pick, and certainly we've had a third overall pick in Johnny Taves. So if he did go second overall, obviously we don't know if he will, but he's definitely going to go at top 10. I think, Craig, you'd agree with that, right?
No question about it. And I want to tell you a funny story with Jim Playfair. So they were on their prairie trip from Prince George, and I think they were playing in Regina, and they were up in the game by 4 or 5 goals, and there was about 6-7 minutes left in the game, and they were heading east. And I think the Carls were having the team to the farm for a feed, and so there's about 7 minutes left in the game, and Jimmy decides, Carson's played lots. I'm going to shut him down for the rest of the night. So he leans over to Carson and he says, "Are your parents here?" And Carson says, No, they're not here. They'll be in Brandon, and you'll see them tomorrow. And Jimmy goes, "Okay." So Jimmy just shuts him down. With 2 minutes left in the game, Carson turns back to Jimmy. He goes, "I guess I gave you the wrong answer. I should have told you my parents were here." He's such a smart kid. He's such an astute kid. He's such a well-grounded person. And his game is exactly that. And he really is just a terrific player and a terrific young man.
Craig, one player that I have to ask you about, because Jets fans, as you know, Jets fans get pretty fixated on certain prospects. At 8th overall, I think you would agree there's no shortage of options. It's going to depend a lot on who goes a couple of spots before the Jets. But Viggo Bjork is a player that a lot of Jets fans are excited about. So I have to ask you about him. He obviously has been shining at the World Hockey Championship. What stands out to you about Viggo Bjork? He's obviously a guy that could go before 8th overall, but he's definitely raising a lot of eyebrows. I think you'd agree at the World Hockey Championships.
Yeah, I would agree. I can't disagree with that, Ezra. And I think that, when you think about, and I got a note from a Swedish friend of mine the other day. He goes, "Geez, you really changed your view on Viggo." And I said, "No, Viggo's changed my view." And scouting is about continuing to watch players and watch how they handle things, how they grow, how they develop, or not. I mean, you start talking about kids that are 16, 17 years of age, and you're not just going to watch them and go, "Oh, he was good, therefore he's good." You're watching it over a period of time. You're watching how he takes hold of different situations, how he handles himself, how he continues to push his game to higher levels. And that's what Viggo has done. Listen, I've said this many a times. I thought he was Sweden's best player at the World Junior Tournament. Their best player at the World Junior Tournament. And, you watch what he did in the SHL. Yeah, he's a young player. It's not easy to get offense. Then he goes down to the J20 and he helps Djurgården win the J20 national championship. Sweden won the U18. They made a massive blunder by not allowing him to come and join the team, and they still won. And, you think about, quite frankly, what a silly decision it was by the Swedish Federation to invoke this stupid rule. And then the Swedish Federation goes, "Well, why don't you come and play for us at the senior men's?" It's like, really? You start to go, okay. It's the Einstein line, the difference between genius and stupidity. Genius has its limits, and people show every day, right? That there's challenge. I call him a Swedish Nick Suzuki. That's what I think Viggo is, and he just controls the game, commands the game. he's everywhere you need to be in a game to make a difference in the game. And he just goes about it. You're not going to see Vigo on an end-to-end rush. You're not going to see Vigo on the highlight reels, flash and dash. But you want to win? Vigo Bjork's going to help you win, and I think he's fantastic. I do want to touch on the 8th overall pick. And like, we can talk about prospects, and there's lots of good prospects, and there's no question in my mind that the Winnipeg Jets, if they use that 8th selection or whatever they do with that pick in terms of moving around the draft, we'll get a good player. I do believe, and I have said this, and I will not stop saying it, I think Kevin Shovel-Dayoff has to turn over every stone and explore every opportunity to trade for a second-line center.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the team is at. That is, Vigo Bjork might come in next year, not this coming year, the year after, and maybe help. Well, that means Scheifele and Connor and Hellebuck and Morrissey are a year older. I think Connor Hellebuck was pretty clear at the end of the season what the expectations are. I'm pretty confident I know what the expectations of the fans are, and I'm pretty positive about the organization feeling they have the ability to push their team closer to Stanley Cup contending status. That's why I say that 8th pick has to be explored. Just don't tell me that there's other ways and you're going to go to a lot lesser options. That 8th pick could be really valuable in helping, because I think they are in a situation where it's not about draft and develop. It is about what can you do with that 8th pick to help your current team, and it ain't with a player. It's with trading the pick to get a player that can come in and help you right now.
Yeah, we don't disagree with you, Craig. I mean, there's no question the Jets are kind of in that in-between stage where it's like you've got holes in this lineup, and these players, as good as they could one day be, are not going to be good enough next year to fill the requisite holes that your lineup has. And unfortunately for them, those guys aren't internally available, and they're not most likely externally available. So it'll be an interesting situation for the Winnipeg Jets, especially when you have a guy like Elias Salamonson who got knocked out of the playoffs for the Moose, right? So there's another guy who's going to be out for the most of the summer and possibly training camp.
Yeah, well, and injuries happen, and certainly, you know, Braden Yager. I mean, I think that in time he's got a chance to be a good player, but he came in and got a taste of it, and we'll see where he ends up next year. But you know, Dave, the one thing I will say, I don't think the Jets are in between. I think the Jets need to know exactly where they're at, and if they want to fiddle with the dials and remain in between, they're always going to be in between. They're not going to be where they say they want to go. Back in 1987. The Washington Capitals were a really good team, and they recognized where they were at. They had some young players in the lineup. They were moving forward. They traded the 15th overall pick for Dale Hunter. Dale Hunter came in and made a material difference to that team. Yeah, the 15th pick ended up being Joe Sakic, but Joe Sakic was only he came in and played. He helped the Quebec Nordiques Colorado Avalanche 6-7 years later. Not. I'm talking about the team. I'm not talking about Joe coming in and not being a good player.
Yeah,
but that was the decision you had to make. And people go, no. For the Washington Capitals at that time, that was what was necessary. David Poile made the move. Dale Hunter turned the dial forward for the Washington Capitals in a significant way. I believe that that's what has to happen for the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I shouldn't ask about any more players now, Craig, because it's good.
No, you can ask me all about players. It's always good to talk about the players. I'm like, you know, players are good. There's a lot of good players in this draft, but go ahead. Let's talk about the players.
Well, Craig, before Dave asked you about another player, we were joking. The Jets announced details of their draft party earlier this week. So if they do trade that 8th overall pick, I'm not sure what the draft party at Canada Life Center becomes.
Well, I'll tell you what it'll become. If they get a good second line center, there'll be cheers going up that'll sound like it did on that day when Cole Perfetti tied the game against St. Louis. The fans know.
No, there's no question. I mean, look, we've been doing this show for too many years, Craig, and everyone knows the needs of this team are without question. One need that they have eventually is a top pairing right side guy, and they might have a very interesting one in a guy who's similar to a Josh Morrissey type, because he's from Alberta, plays for Prince Albert, and in Daxon Rudolph. So what can you say about him?
Love Daxon. And Daxon's another example. Ezra, when you asked me about Vigo, Daxon's another player. And really, the first overall pick in the Western Hockey League Bantam draft. And so right away, you're going, okay, you better pay attention to this young man. And you do. And he's another player that just you watch. And he just continues to take his game up and up and up and up. He keeps mastering the next challenges. He takes on more minutes. He takes on more responsibility. And he tied for the Western Hockey League playoff lead in points as a defenseman. And I think that in and of itself on a really good Prince Albert team speaks volumes about how good he is. But his game is so well rounded. He has a ruggedness to his game as well. He's got a physical element. He's got a ruggedness to him. He's a player that wants to let the opponent know this is who you're playing against tonight. And I am not going to make it easy for you. So are you up for the challenge? Because he's going to make it challenging for opponents. But he's got a good shot. He handles the puck. He makes good decisions with the puck. And I think he certainly looks like that top pair right shot defenseman that becomes a foundational type player on your blue line. I'll be straightforward with you. I'll be shocked if he's there at 8 if they're taking that pick. Shocked.
Yeah,
Color me shocked. I'll put a camera on me if he's there at 8. And I'll show you. This is Craig shocked that Daxon Rudolph got to 8.
Get the GoPro on you, right, Craig?
Yeah.
How many defensemen lead their team in scoring and then put up 27 points in 19 playoff games, right? Like Rudolph. Rudolph. I think a lot of Jets fans would be happy if they got Daxon Rudolph at 8th overall. And another player I wanted to ask you about was a defenseman, just based on your most recent mock draft. We talked a little bit about Caleb Malhotra, who's ranked 6th. I think if he dropped to 8th, obviously that would be, I think, great for the Jets. But Albert Smits is the guy I wanted to ask you about because he is ranked number 8. What can you tell fans who don't know a lot about Albert Smits' game?
Well, there's a lot. Albert Smits is playing in the World Championships as well. And on Saturday, May 23rd, Latvia beat the USA 4-2 at the World Championships. And he, on most games, he's right up there amongst the defense time on ice leaders. We're talking about somebody that turned 18 in December. He was terrific at the World Junior. He's been terrific in the finish in the Liga. Playing for Ukarit. And here he is now at the World Championships doing everything. Tremendous skater. He's got tremendous initiative in his game. He's bold. He's physical. He's a competitor. He played in the Olympics. How could I overlook the Olympics? And he was a good player for them at the Olympics. He might be, in my view, and I don't base a lot of this. I don't put a lot of this into thing, but he very well may be the player most ready to play in the National Hockey League next year. The physical maturity, the age, and everything that goes with it. But when you can skate like that and you can beat pressure, join the attack, you've got a competitive bent to your game. He's got good vision. He passes the puck well. He gets involved in the offense. He's another player that he's going to be very interesting to watch how the draft unfolds because he could be a Mo Seider type. As a left shot Latvian, and he could be a Mo Seider type. In fact, in the draft where a team comes up and goes, "Yep, from Ukarit in the Finnish Elite League, Albert Smits." So he's that good, and if you're looking for a player that you think might be able to come in and help your team next year, you might lean a little bit more towards that player.
Craig, I feel like every year when we have you on just before the draft, I ask you this question, but are there any players that are maybe your diamonds in the rough? It feels like the top 10 has been analyzed and backwards and forwards, and people are doing the mocks up to the first, 62 picks. But from your perspective, are there any players that you're like, okay, these guys aren't necessarily first rounders, but these guys are potential NHLers if they hit their ceilings?
Yeah, I say, and I say this all the time, and I'm consistent with it. There's so much that goes in with these players, and you try to say, okay, who's a diamond in the rough and everything. Most of the players, if you look at my list, and it's not a mock draft, it's a ranking, who I think will be the best players. You might look at my list and go, hey, I think that player could be really good. And if I think a player has the potential, I don't rank him 38th. I have a much higher. Like, players like at the Memorial Cup, Matthias Van Hanen, who missed it, who made the draft last year by 7 or 8 days. He plays in Everett. And he's a player that the more I watch, the more I'm impressed by him. He 5'10" and a half winger, 5'11" winger, but he's got that brain speed and that puck skills and that offensive knack. Jake Gensel, like when I watch him, he might be a little bit more playmaker than goal scorer than Jake. But Jake was a 3rd-round draft pick, and when I watch Van Hanen and I watch the way he thinks the game and how well he plays in all the different areas, and how many times do you hear about a player learning that you can slow the game down at the NHL level? I think Matthias already has that ability to not be racing and to just have his mind understand what he's doing. And I really, really like that player. Alexander Kaman, a Swedish center, is another guy that, I watch him play. And he's another player that might not show up on the highlight reels. And if he does, it'll be rare. But when you think about the substance of the game and how hard it is in the game, and I think that Alexander Kaman is another player that is really good. I'll be straightforward with you guys in full transparency. Skill seduces. Soft skill never helps you win. Like players that have soft skill, they're not going to be very high on my list. If you want to look at my list and understand why some players aren't high, it's because I believe they're soft skill. And everybody takes chances on, not everybody, teams take chances on soft skill. It doesn't help you win. Soft skill will never help you win.
There you go. Well, that's what show's all about, is winning, Craig. Well, not really, but we appreciate anytime you are willing to share your.
We're only about
time.
hard skills here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Exactly. Well, you should be. Hey, I've said this, Ezra. If winning was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah,
very true.
Yeah.
It's not easy to win in the National Hockey League. And people say, I get calls from agents now. What about? I said, you want it straight? I'll give it to you straight. Soft skill.
Yeah.
Well, he's got skill. I go good. Yeah. You know how many soft skill guys I've seen get drafted and never make it, never have any dent? Lots.
Well, I was going to let you go, Craig, but that's kind of the idea of like when you hear these guys come in and they have such big totals in junior, and then you're like, well, let's see how they're going to transition to the NHL game, or the pro game, I should say, especially with the move to the AHL and that sort of transition. We saw it with Braden Yager. We saw it with Colby Barlow this year with the Manitoba Moose. And Colby, a lot of people were writing him off. He had a real good end to his season. Talked to Mark Morrison about him, and just, the amount, the growth, the jump that these guys have to go from junior, where they can dominate, to the pro level is so significant, and people just take it for granted. And then you talk to Mark, and Mark would be like, well, Colby's first 3 steps in the neutral zone were like non-existent. And then all of a sudden he got it, and you could see, he scored 5 goals in his last 8 games, and it was like a different player. So, you know what I mean? It's that idea of like guys, and again, I'm not saying he's ready to go play in the NHL or anything like that, but it's just guys who can dominate junior. Then it's like, whoa, I got to play pro, and it's a whole different thing.
And you're exactly right. And timelines, everybody's timeline is different. Like it would be nice if we just put everybody on the same timeline. My wife has a saying, they have to find their way. And, and we all expect, like Colby in this case, we expect them to, he's a 1st-round draft pick, and, he only had so many goals. Well, that's okay. I've seen lots of players that, had a little bit of a challenge when they first turned pro. And to your point, Dave, it's hard. The American Hockey League is a hard league. And now you're playing against older players. And so when I go back to what I said about the NCAA, when I watch a Cole Reshny, and I'm just using Cole because he was a 1st-round draft pick, and I look at a Cole Reshny and I go, like, Cole understands that, like, okay, how do I get my game harder? How do I get my game like set up where I can compete better against the bigger, stronger, harder players? And that's the path now when I talk about development at the NCAA. The CHL is a wonderful league, and it offers so many different opportunities to the players. But there's certain things it doesn't offer. And there's certain things the NCAA doesn't offer. It doesn't offer opportunity to 16 and 17, in a lot of cases, 18-year-old players. But you get to that next stage, and it offers something that the CHL doesn't, and the CHL offers something that the NCAA doesn't offer. But Cole Reshny, and I just use him specifically, he's exactly what you talk about. So if Cole Reshny finishes his junior career, he might, his first year, be very similar to what Colby Barlow went through or what Braden Yager went through. If you believe in these players, help them develop, be patient with them. There's going to be lots of chatter that people are going to talk about. Oh, geez, how do they draft Colby Barlow? Oh, my God, how do you draft it, right? Listen, I have a rule. If you didn't criticize it at the time, shut your mouth after the fact.
Craig, that's a rule on this show all the time. We try and get Drew to shut his mouth when he's on the show, but it's not easy for us.
We can never get we can never get Mindell to shut his mouth.
But we did today. Drew's not on today?
Exactly.
Did you get him off today for that reason?
Yeah.
Ezzy and I wanted to dominate the questions. We wanted to win, Craig, with only the...
it's a 1 week suspension, Craig, for Drew.
Drew, you know what I like about it? Eliminate the competition. That's what it's about. I'll just take them right out. You gave him the wrong information to link in. I love it. That's cutthroat.
Craig, Drew brings what we call soft skill. So we weren't interested in having him on today's show, but we were interested in you. Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate all your time and your insight, Craig, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the draft, covering the draft next month.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, there you go.
Here's
Craig Button of TSN. We went overtime, as he went long into overtime, but it was worth it because we got great insight from Craig and, of course, from Jamie Thomas in the first hour. So a lot of fun, a lot of laughs on today's show, and it's been a good one. But again, as we said, it's overtime. Got to get our Saturday started. So as do all of you. So we thank Craig, we thank Jamie, we thank our sponsors. We better get that done, Ez. So maybe you have some final words while I get ready to thank our sponsors.
Well, I do have some final words. They're not Winnipeg Jets or NHL draft related, but I'd like to give a shout out because we're not going to be on the air during the actual date, but I want to give a big shout out to my daughter, Ariella. She turns 8 on Tuesday. Wow. So like I said, we're not going to be on air before then. So happy birthday to the apple of my eye. And we're looking forward to celebrating her birthday party tomorrow.
All right. Well, happy early birthday to Ariella. Hopefully she's not the 7-Eleven apple of Ezzy's eye because we know what happened that time. But happy birthday, early birthday to her. Many, many more happy and healthy ones. And we appreciate everyone here joining us on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show and spending your Saturday morning with us. A big thank you to all of you and a big thank you to all of the sponsors. We got Frosty who's going to put it up on the chat. But a big thank you to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and the website a possibility. They are, in no particular order, Ezra: Rumors Restaurant and a Comedy Club, Play Now, Holt Dental, City Place, Wheeland Hockey, Boston Pizza, and the Rady JCC Sports Dinner with keynote speakers Joe Carter and Cito Gaston taking place on Thursday, June 4th. That's coming up fast, Ez. Yep. Tickets available at radyjcc.com. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. All right.
One more shout out because I know he listens every week on the podcast. Your cousin, Harvey Manouk, who we will see at the Rady dinner because I've been reliably informed that he will be. I don't know if he's sitting at our table. Harvey likes to sit with Illegal Curve, Dave.
Yep.
So, I wanted to give him a shout out because he's obviously one of our favorites here on the show.
All righty. Well, that is the end. Ezra ends the show with the shout out to a Manouk, and I will end the show with a shout out to a Ginsburg. Thanks, Ezra, for joining us and for being so good on today's show. And thank you on my behalf, and thank you to Drew on Drew's behalf. In absentia, he'll be back next week when the three of us resume the Saturday morning show on Illegal Curve's YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you leave comments in the videos because that's how we help our engagement. And thanks a lot for everyone. Hey, go out and enjoy that weather. Maybe not today with the rain, but all next week, 30 degrees here in Manitoba. All right, folks, have a great one. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining us this Saturday morning.